What's good, y'all? I've got some sick buffs for Beautifly, but before I get into them, I do want to have a quick disclaimer for any new viewers. First of all, welcome. Second of all, if you look at the description down below, you can check out the same Google Sheet I'm sharing on screen right now, and you can look at all 600 plus move buffs and changes. Those are super, super important to understand how all of the Pokemon are going to function now. And we'll be covering, maybe a dozen tops in this video, but there are 600 plus of them, so I don't have time to get into every single one of those videos. So yeah, do yourself a favor. Give that a look. Bookmark the Google Sheet, subscribe to the channel, all that fun stuff. And yep, you can see on screen it's got these little categories on it, and you can check out what they do from here. Or you can just scroll, or you can just Control+F, whatever you want to do. Regardless though, Beautifly has two incredible abilities which function really well in conjunction with some very specific moves and move buffs and changes, which is what I'm going to get into in a little bit. Those abilities are Ruthless and Serene Grace. So go to Beautifly's Pokedex entry, you might be looking at Beautifly and being like, how the hell is this thing ruthless? It's kind of funny actually. If you go to the Ruthless guide on the Google Sheet and you look at all the moves that are affected by it and all that stuff, and you look at all the Pokemon that are on that list, it's hilarious, honestly. It's always been funny to me. Like, you've got all these scary, menacing, or like sharp or edgy Pokemon, and then you've just got fucking Beautifly chilling, which is pretty funny to me. But yeah, if you read the Pokedex, it talks about how Beautifly has an aggressive nature. Despite its looks, it is aggressive. It jabs with its long thin mouth. It's disturbed while collecting pollen. It has an aggressive nature. Despite its appearance, it is savage. All types of stuff. So that's the logic for Ruthless. And then Serene Grace is kind of like what it looks like. So it's like looks versus what it really acts like. It's kind of cool. I like how both the abilities fit either side of Beautifly's origin, I guess. So Ruthless gives Beautifly a massive 50% boost to critical hits. And as you can see on screen, there are dozens of new moves that will always land a critical hit. The most important ones in this case being Razor Wind, Aero Blast, and Bug Bomber. Those are all special moves. So Razor Wind, absolute nuke. It's 270 base power. You can use it with a Power Herb. Razor Wind also pairs well with Serene Grace because it has a 60% chance to flinch with Serene Grace, so you can use that on both. Aero Blast is 146 base power. It always crits. Very, very strong. With Ruthless, of course. It's 146 with Ruthless. Otherwise, it's 65. And then 97.5 normally from a crit. So that's really great. It's incredibly powerful with no drawbacks. You can use a Choice Scarf with Bug Bomber and Aero Blast. For certain boss fights, you might need that Choice Scarf because your speed stat, albeit not bad, you're not guaranteed a plus speed nature or max speed IVs. So without like Sticky Webs up or a Quiver Dance or Blossom Dance up, you're not going to outspeed anything that you might otherwise outspeed, even with max speed EVs. So you're definitely going to want to run Choice Scarf for a lot of fights, and because of that, that's risky because now you can't run Wide Lens for Aero Blast and Bug Bomber, which means that they have a 5 and 10% chance to miss respectively. So you do have to be careful there. You get a bunch of good utility moves, which I'll get into later. But yes, they do get Sticky Web. A lot of of the early route bugs get Sticky Web as their baby forms because of the string shot stuff that they use. Beautifly especially, it fits. I mean, if Rabambi can have it, Beautifly can totally have it, and that helps Beautifly a lot. 100 base speed with Sticky Web, even with a 15 speed IV and a neutral speed nature. Now you can actually outspeed things that are grounded on the opponent's team if you get a web up. So you can keep that. Use that once you get the later moves. Serene Grace has incredible options, as you can see on screen. Revelation Dance will always boost Beautifly's special attack, and obviously Revelation Dance fits really well for Beautifly, this kind of like elegant butterfly type Pokemon. So yeah, Revelation Dance, 90 base power stab, 100% chance to boost your special attack stat. You can use a Choice Scarf with that, or you can use it with Sticky Web and just spam that move and kind of go crazy from there. You also have, typical setup moves like Nasty Pot and Calm Mind, and I'll get into the utility later, but they are not just like funny offensive button. Another good thing that Beautifly doesn't have to worry about in this hack is entry hazards. In fact, you're actually immune to the most common ones in Sticky Webs and Toxic Spikes. Stealth Rocks are not useful for the AI to abuse against you. Maybe 1 or 2 boss fights will use them at most, but it's not like a ever battle type thing like it is in singles or in competitive battling. Quiver Dance is changed, so Quiver Dance only is essentially, what am I trying to say? Quiver Dance is essentially Special Dragon Dance now, which is a bit of a sad thing for all of like the early route bugs, but it's mostly just so I can give it to more Pokemon, and because I just think it makes more sense, and because I wanted to make a lesser distributed move, Lunar Dance, function like Quiver Dance used to. So that's for Quiver Dance is still great though. That's all you need is special attack and speed. And then Blossom Dance is even better, 5 levels later, which you'll have by the Aether Foundation or the end of the Aether Foundation. Quiver Dance you'll have either right before Nanu or right after Nanu. I'm not exactly sure how the level limits are going to work for later in the game. I've only really planned up for Akala, Melee, and stuff like that. But yeah, Quiver Dance is super cool, and then Blossom Dance gives you +2 speed and +1 to both your offenses. The physical attack is not useful in Beautifly. In fact, I dropped it. I don't know why it was so high before. I guess it's because they had the needle mouth, but you can theoretically actually use physical Beautifly sets for certain boss fights because despite the fact that you only have 50 base attack, First Impression is an infinitely reteachable TM, which is really good. And that will always crit, which makes it 135 base power, and it's stab. So with the choice band, Beautifly can actually dispatch a lot of really scary, fast offensive Pokemon in the hack if you need it. If you need it. So if you're doing a team lock, Nuzlocke, for example, you can't go to your PC and just grab whatever Pokemon you want at any time. Beautifly might be your best option to click First Impression. It might actually be stronger than something that you wouldn't expect it to be because of the multipliers from Stab and from Ruthless, and you can just switch it in on a fighting move or whatever, or a grass move, because Bug and Flying is actually a genuinely really good defensive typing once you remove the fact that you have to worry about entry hazards. You do have a good amount of common weaknesses, but you have very useful 4x resists and double resists. And in the ROM hack like this, that's really important. So that's awesome. Sticky Web is still great, obviously. You've got other really cool utility like Parting Shot and Toxic Spikes and Dual Screens and Reteachable Roost, which is nice. You also get Strength Up at level 30, which is really nice. And as for other Serene Grace options, so the main option, of course, is Revelation Dance, right? Otherwise, it's just a flinch machine. So you're using Air Slash, 80 base power, 100% accurate. You're using Bug Buzz, which is 95 base power, 100% accurate. Both of those have a 60% chance to flinch with Serene Grace. So that's the main use. Also, Signal Beam and Dazzling Gleam. Signal Beam is like baby Revelation Dance, kind of in this case. So Signal Beam is 80 base power, has a 1 in 4 chance normally, so a 1 in 2 chance to boost special attack with Serene Grace. So that's a good option for earlier in the game. And then Dazzling Gleam does the same thing, but is fairy type. So those are cool. As a whole, it's just a really, really sick Pokemon. Other utility for midway through the game, for our Carlisle and Totems, stuff like Sweet Scent and Charm is super useful. Priority Whirlwind with 3 PP is super useful. Razor Wind, like I said, is super powerful. Sleep Powder is obviously still good. It's 85% accurate. Sleep will always last for 2 turns, so you can click Sleep Powder with a Wide Lens, with Ruthless, with Bug Bomber, and Aeroblast, and then you can use like Blossom Dance or Quiver Dance in that last move slot, and you can get off a guaranteed Quiver Dance on that first turn and outspeed things and go crazy with your dual stab. Your coverage is not the best because it's Beautifly, but you do have enough coverage to hit things if you needed it. Although honestly, most of the time, it's super effective. For example, with Ruthless, it's super effective. Energy Ball would still probably do less than like a Ruthless boosted neutral Bug Bomber or Aeroblast in a lot of cases, unless it's 4 times effective or if the Pokemon in front of you resists your stab. So it's not like it has bad coverage. I mean, Shadow Ball, Psychic, Energy Ball, Sludge Bomb, Solar Beam is also Ruthless boosted as well, which is pretty funny. You could use Power Herb Solar Beam for certain boss fights to kill certain things, or you could use it in the sun with Weather Ball and Solar Beam. That's genuinely a viable option for certain boss fights. Yeah, it's got good utility. Even stuff like Rain Dance and Grassy Terrain and Sunny Day can be good for team support with Parting Shot. Webs is obviously a staple if you do want to keep it. The pre-evolutions are great for Melee Island. Silicone will evolve just in time for Hala, but before that you have just really good bulk and really good utility moves and an actual usable special attack stat with moves like Siphon, which is Bug-type Draining Kiss, and Molt, which is Bug-type Recover, and all types of useful things there, poisoning moves and status and all types of other great things. So yeah, using Silcoon for the first island is not an issue at all, and then you will have Beautifly legal for Hala, which is nice with that 4 times fighting resist, and also their newfound special defense stat will help them. I did have to differentiate all of the bug and flying types from one another, especially Vivillon and Butterfree, so you can check out those changes on the Google Sheet and see how they compare. You can also go watch the videos if that interests you. That's really about it. Lastly, I can quickly touch on Focus Energy, which is pretty good with the Scope Lens. Obviously, that's like the old-fashioned way of using Sniper, but in a hack like this, when there's all types of crit moves, it's not the best option anymore. It's kind of niche. But for earlier in the game, for like the mid-level 20s, you could use Focus Energy for like Gladion, maybe, with the Scope Lens. I believe you will have the Scope Lens by the time you get to Gladion. Yeah, you will, because it's in Panula Ranch. So that's pretty cool. You could use that with like priority moves, Draining Kiss, whatever you want to use. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for listening. Lastly, no, there was one more thing I wanted to say. Z-Powder. Z-Powder will give you +1 to all your stats, which makes you bulkier and is the same boost as something like Quiver Dance. And you learned it earlier than Quiver Dance, so you should have Z-Powder in time for Nanu. So you could try that, although you are still vulnerable to strong priority attacks like First Impression, despite the fact that you resist it, like a Ruthless boosted or Stab First Impression with a boosting item coming off of like a really strong Pokemon might still one-shot you because your HP and defense is not that great, even though you resist it. Although, if invest accordingly, you can actually take advantage of that. But the reason I'm saying first impression specifically is because it always will crit, meaning it will bypass through your Z powder defense boost. Regular moves you can totally live with +1 defense and special defense. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for listening. It's just got awesome utility, awesome offensive capability, very fun Pokemon to use. Also, I didn't cover Tangling Hair. Pretty logical choice for Silcoon. I think it's kind of cute. Could be good for like Totem Gumshoes. Sturdy, good for a lot of trainer fights. And Tangling Hair is still good for, you know, trainer fights too with Molt and stuff like that. You can heal up, and Struggle Bug will always drop attack and special attack, so that's a great utility move as well. So in general, Silcoon's like super goated for the first island, and Wurmple will evolve in time for the trainer school most likely. So you're mostly just using that for the very beginning of the game. And it's not bad anyways. You know, Sap Sipper makes it immune to Leech Seed and stuff, and you know, other common early game moves, and a Poison Point is just Poison Point. So yeah, thank you for listening. Peace.